What's up, everybody? We are back. This is Myron Pierce. I'm the content director for Church Next. And if you're wondering what in the world is Church Next, well, guess what? We're all about healthy growth and healthy reproduction. It's the blend over of Exponential and Leadership Network together. And I'm here with my friends. They're really leading the show. I'm just riding shotgun. Jade and Jennifer, how about y'all introduce yourselves and then we'll get this thing rolling.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jade Richards. I'm a missionary here from Birmingham, UK, England, and I serve at the Edge Urban Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My mission is to help reach the hip hop culture for Christ, and I also do that by serving as the media and retail director for Hustle, Pray, Eat. So that's me.
Hey.
Hey, you guys, it is Jennifer Benton. I am the founder of Genetic Marketing Group and the marketing director and director of communications for Mount Hermon Baptist Church in Philly. And I'm excited to be here. We got Urban D, so I'm in fan mode right now.
See, I wasn't gonna say nothing, Jennifer. I wasn't gonna say nothing when we was doing our little pre-show thing, but you said it. So yeah. So it's out there. But hey, check this out. We have the one and only Tommy Kyllonen, aka Urban D, and it is a pleasure. I'm gonna tell you how I first met this dude. I was in the penitentiary years ago, 20 years ago this month, on my way to the penitentiary. And while I was in the penitentiary, I read a book that changed my life, and it was about a man named Urban D. Fast forward to the time I got out the penitentiary, I ended up at a conference called Flavor Fest, where I was able to come and enjoy, and Tommy will talk about that in a little bit, but I was able to enjoy what God's doing right there in Tampa. And so crazy full circle how we are now having a conversation with one of my heroes in the faith. So man, it's good. I'm thankful that you're here with us today, bro.
Amen. Isn't that amazing how God works? Thanks for being here, Tommy.
Yeah, it's amazing to be here with you guys.
So let's start this off then, just from the top, really. So you tell us about yourself and about Crossover Church.
Sure. I love the accent. So people say we all have accents, right? I'm originally from Philly, so shout out to my sister from Philly, Jennifer, in the building. But I've been down in Tampa, Florida now for, I just turned 26 years. So I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else. So I'm officially a Tampanian, more than a Philadelphian anymore. But I came here directly after Bible college, and I met my wife when I was in Bible college, Southeastern, and she's from New York City. I'm from Philly. We thought we were going to go back up north, but God didn't open up any doors. He brought us to Tampa, to this little urban church that had just started, just planted a few years before that, and they needed a youth pastor. They had no youth ministry. So me and my wife launched that from the ground up. And two big things we did was music and sports. I was into basketball, I rapped, was into hip hop. So I used those two things to really reach, young people in our community. And immediately we just started reaching all these unchurched kids. We had this old 1973 van that we called the Hoopty, and we would go down to the projects and pick everybody up. And so that's how we began to grow the youth group. And within the first year, the youth ministry was larger than the adult service on Sunday. I mean, there was only about 35, 40 adults on Sundays. And fast forward to a few years later, there was hundreds that were coming to the youth service on Thursday nights and still about 40 on Sunday. And the pastors were bivocational. And y'all know what that means. So they didn't really have a lot of time to develop the ministry. They got worn out. They got burned out. So every 2 years, we would switch pastors. They would get burned out and leave, be like, Tommy, you want to take over? I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm doing the youth ministry. And like Paul made tents, I rapped. I didn't really get a regular salary at the church. So the way I made money for my family was I rapped. I was an artist, and I was going to go get a job. But my pastor was like, no, use your music, make an album. And so there's some of my albums back there on the wall. But I ended up getting signed to a label. And so I would be traveling regularly, trying to take care of my family, go do ministry, which I love to. And I was learning great stuff to bring back home and teaching people as I was out on the road. And so for many, many years, about 15 years, my music was really the main thing that sustained us. But anyways, in 2002, I got pushed into being the lead pastor. And so I'm celebrating just last month, 20 years of being in this role as a lead pastor. When I took over, we didn't have much money. We didn't have much people. We still had about 40 adults on Sunday. I was one of the oldest. I was 28 at the time. And but the biggest asset we had was freedom to reshape and recreate and innovate what the multi-ethnic urban church could look like in an unchurched, de-churched context. So we carefully and prayerfully began to change the way we did church. One of the first things we did, we put a DJ booth in on the stage. That was our main instrument. We didn't even have a band, but we had the DJ popping on an instrumental, and the worship team would match up a worship song with it. We'd have a rapper that would drop, a little 16 bars like in the middle of the upbeat worship song. And we were doing this 20 years ago. I know other churches are starting to implement that recently, and now it's cool, it's innovative, but we've been doing this for a long time. And but we did it because it worked. It reached our community, and the church began to grow and grow. And soon we had to do 2 services. We had a little 200-seat auditorium, and then 3 services. We built an overflow room outside under a patio. It's Florida. You could do that and use it all year round pretty much. And then 11 years ago, we relocated to a former retail box. We took over a former Toys R Us building, 43,000 square feet. Big leap of faith for our church to go from 6,000 square feet to 43,000. And it almost killed us. I wouldn't recommend that big of a jump for everybody, but the Lord was with us, and we made it. And it took a few years for us to really get settled in, but immediately great ministry was happening. But it's been an amazing journey. We've been in there 11 years now. We're multi-ethnic, multi-generational, multi-class. We have people that come and walk from the neighborhood. We have people that drive from other parts of the city, people that come from the suburbs, people that drive like an hour to get to church. In our parking lot, you can find Bentleys and you can find bicycles, everything in between. It's amazing.
So that is so amazing. Like, that's huge. Just the amount of growth and things that you've accomplished in the time that you've been there. So my little story, I grew up, small town, Ohio, originally from Cleveland. And I was watching INSP with the Cirillos.
Oh, Inspiration Network.
Inspiration Network.
Man, yes. Still Roots too.
Yes, Still Roots. And so I would always see like the promos for Flavor Fest, and I'll be like, oh my God, mommy, I want to go. And she's like, I'm not going because I don't do festivals. And my mother was an elder in the church. So she was like traditional. And then I was like her offspring that was like trying to bridge traditional and hip hop. And just watching, the promos and then seeing you on Inspiration Network from time to time, I was like, man, like this is so crazy and just like, So my fan moment is like, this is the closest to Flavor Fest that I've ever gotten. So I'm like freaking out on the inside.
And you got to come down.
Yes, indeed. So my question for you in regards to Flavor Fest is, what was the, how did you come up with the concept for that? Like what sparked that for you?
Yeah, really cool story. So I got signed to a record label, and I wasn't even trying to get signed. I was just trying to do ministry and music, and I love doing it. And I didn't even want necessarily a traditional record deal. I didn't want some label to put me on tour for months, because my primary call was, I'm called to do this youth ministry here in the city, in the hood. And I'm not going to leave and go on tour for 3 months. Plus I'm married and all that stuff. And so anyways, my first album came out. The label agreed, no, we want you to keep doing exactly what you're doing. Whenever you can go out, great. So my first album came out, and I'm sitting here in my office. It's, I'll move back. It's that blue album right there. My third one's called The Missing Element, came out in 1999. And for all you young cats out there, the struggle was real back then for an artist, because if you wanted to get your music out, I mean, you had to have a deal, because the only place your music could get out nationally was in a store. If your music was in the store, there was no, streaming, there was no YouTube, there was no online platforms really at the time. And so my first album came out in the stores, and it was a very limited amount of Christian hip hop that was out. I mean, there might've been 10 to 15 groups that had a national deal that you could find their CD in the store. So I was like honored to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm in here with my heroes, the guys I've been listening to. Now I'm doing songs with them, sitting on the shelf next to them. But inside of the album cover, the CD cover, there was a page that had a picture with me and my youth group behind me, about 200 kids, this multi-ethnic youth group behind me, and like a paragraph under it that talked about this hip hop styled youth ministry that we were doing with concerts and basketball leagues and breakdancing classes and MC classes and all the unique talent development classes and stuff we were doing. And so that album, you know, was in stores and thousands of people were buying it and seeing this. And suddenly we started to get flooded. We didn't anticipate this, but we started to get flooded with all these phone calls and emails. Email was out back then. And people were like, how are you guys doing this? We want to do this in our city, or we want to transform or revitalize our youth ministry, or we want to start this outreach ministry. I had this dream and this is it. Like I saw it in your album. And so suddenly we're in Florida. A lot of people come down here on vacation. And so they were like, we're going to Disney and Urban D's church. And so we had all these like visitors showing up at our church services, and sometimes bringing like busloads of people. We're running out of seats. It was just crazy. And so everybody was like, help us, train us. And so we had a lot of phone calls, meetings, emails. And soon we're like, you know what? That's not really helping that much. It's not doing it justice. Sometimes it left people with even more questions. And so we said, we need to do a weekend where we just invite people to come down here and they can like experience this, like boots on the ground, and we'll do our youth service. They can see that. We'll do some outreaches. They can see the way our facility's set up, the way we do ministry here in our community. We'll do some workshops. We'll do some training, and we're going to have some big concerts. We're going to show them how they should really do a hip hop concert in excellence. Because at the time, people were flying me in and paying thousands of dollars to bring me and several of my guys in. I had a DJ and break dancers and put us in a hotel and feed us and give us an honorarium, a love offering. And they would put us in an auditorium with a boombox with one little mic and all the lights on. And I'm like, are you serious? This is like a horrible environment. This is terrible. This sounds terrible, you know, and you spent all this money to bring us here. Like, what are you doing? So a lot of people just didn't know how to put on a good show. And now, praise God, the church is caught up with all that. But we just wanted to show people, like, you got to have a booming sound system. You could turn all the lights down and have stage lights and have some haze in the air and, you know, have a good MC that's transitioning everything, have a DJ there, just keep the vibe moving the whole night. There's no awkward pauses. And we became really good at putting on professional hip hop concerts that were drawing hundreds and hundreds of people in every time we did them. So that's what we said. We're going to do that at Flavor Fest. And we said, let's call it Flavor Fest. It's a training conference, but it's a music festival. And so we launched our first one in November of the year 2000, 22 years ago almost. And at the first one, we had about 70 leaders show up from around the country. And we had about 300 people that came out to the concerts in the evening. Since then, it's grown to where we average about 300 or 400 leaders that come to the conference. And we have we have general sessions, several breakout workshop tracks for artists and church planting and our urban apologetics and worship and youth ministry and a women's track. And, you know, we've done all kinds of different tracks. We even did a DJ track a couple of years, we do an innovation track. And then we do a big street outreach where we send everybody out and they do Love Our City in the community. And then we have these two festival concerts at night that gather, you know, 1,000+ people each evening. And it's still going strong. Actually, the one that we just did in the fall of 2021, we didn't know if we were going to be able to do it or not, but we were in like a low season of COVID here in Florida, and it was great. And people came out the woodworks. We actually had more people than we had at the last Flavor Fest in 2018, pre-pandemic. People were like ready, and this was even before things were totally better. I mean, in Florida it was pretty good. Florida does whatever it wants. But yeah, that's a little bit of the history of Flavor Fest. We've been able to train over 5,000 leaders. So
I'm glad you told the whole story, or at least enough for those who are watching who want to catch the replay. And it's really the foundation for why we're having this conversation today. Because, you know, you were doing things back then 20 years ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and we're I know the churches we've planted, we're recipients of Flavor Fest. I mean,
God.
I can remember back when I got out the penitentiary, I think it was 2008, 2009, whatever, you know, year that conference was. We went down there and we were already attracting guys who were hood and gangbangers, but hip hop, you know, just culture. And so we literally, the same thing that happened with your story about the youth group was bigger than the church. Legitly, our youth group was 3 or 4 times bigger than our church. It was like 300 or 400 kids, right? And so it completely I don't think we really had this conversation before, but I mean, our church became known as the place. Like, if you wanted to, like, b-boy, if you wanted to, we took a apartment complex and turned it into a studio where young artists that we were working with in the communities, right, could have an opportunity to be a part of this work. And so the reason why we're sharing all this is because if we don't innovate, we die.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to how we view reaching out to the community, living missionally, how we do it collectively as a church. And so for those of you who are watching, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We want to see the cross section between innovation and church, innovation and the church reaching the community be like the apex of what we do as leaders.
Yeah, and I would echo that, and I would say, you know, where there's innovation, there is also inspiration. And so because of that, I want to thank you. We, on behalf of the Edge, want to thank you because I know that a lot of inspiration has come from Crossover Church. And I first want to thank you as well for how much you allowed Hustle Pray Eat to be a part of the last Flavor Fest. Thank you for allowing us to show up and represent there as well. Like, that's great. And I don't know if you remember, Tommy, Urban D, I don't know what you want me to call you. But we actually met for the first time 5 years ago at the Youth Workers Institute in California.
Yes.
And yeah, do you remember that? Yeah. PE was very adamant that we had lunch with you and just to hear from you, and because of the inspiration that you have given the Edge. So I want to say thank you as well for that. You know, PE references you and crossover a lot of times, and you know, you help us to do what we're able to do at the Edge as well.
I love the Edge. I love PE.
Yes, amazing, man. So I did want to ask you though, because we are 2 years into a pandemic, and as you said, you know, Florida pretty much does what it wants, but the pandemic is still very much a real thing even now. How was Crossover affected by the pandemic, and what have you learned in that season or this season?
Yeah. Well, we definitely were affected like all of us were at some different capacity. Again, I am grateful that we've been in Florida, so we haven't had as many restrictions down here, but we did remain closed for a season, longer than many other churches. Our church is multi-ethnic, but we're about 2/3 minorities. And, you know, a lot of minorities have been impacted by COVID, and a lot more statistically. And so, you know, they were a lot more hesitant to come back. And so we had planned on opening in the summer of 2020 in July. A lot of the other churches opened up like in May and June. And we were like, we're going to wait, we're going to fall back and watch y'all do it and learn from you. And like, there really wasn't even many COVID cases here. But then late June, July happened. We got our first spike of cases here. And we hadn't even had 1,000 cases here in Tampa, like the whole first couple months in total. And then we were seeing like 1,000 cases a day. And it was like, whoa, you know, and then we started to actually know some people that were sick. Before that, we're like, is this real? I don't know anybody that's sick. Yeah, my uncle up in New York had it, but I don't know. You know, I don't think it can exist here in Florida. That's what we felt at first. But yeah, so we were like, we're not going to open up in July now. Like, cases are at an all-time high. It's not going to be like, it's safe to come back now. Let's go. So, you know, we didn't end up coming back until October. So we had to be innovative and continue to be online for almost 7 months. But during that time, we have a really innovative team. We were already streaming. We've been streaming since 2006. Yeah, a lot of people might not even know streaming was a thing back then, but we were always trying to be ahead of the curve. And it was on some free services. It looked terrible. But anyways, we were streaming. It got better and better as technology got better over the years. But even pre-pandemic, we had more people watching online than we had in the room. And I know some of that's because we have a unique church and there's people that watch us from all over the country. But even a lot of our people were accustomed to watching online if they were out of town or if they just didn't feel like coming in person. They were already doing that. I mean, my crowd is mostly under 40, so they're tech savvy. 85% of our giving was already online pre-pandemic. So we were already like having these conversations of, I don't think we're going to pass an offering bucket anymore because there's hardly anybody that gives physically. And everyone looks at the bucket like, what's this? Is this for chicken? Like, what is this, right? So, so for us as a church, the digital switch was really easy for our people, but it was hard because we didn't have that touch, because we are a high touch, very relational community. And so that was the challenging part. But we did Zoom groups, of course, we innovated with all that. We did a lot more outreach right away. We said, man, what does our community need? What does our people need? And, in the beginning, a lot of people were losing jobs and things were closing down and people losing income. And so we started a grocery drive-through with one of our partners, Feeding Tampa Bay, shout out to them. And we were serving at first it was about 300 or 400 families a week. And then it grew and we became a main hub and we were doing 800 or 900 families a week during the peak. And that was on one afternoon. And we were just ministering to those people as they were waiting in line, giving them bottles of water, praying with them, talking to them, telling them to watch us online. Then when we reopened, a lot of them started to come. And there is just so many cool stories that came out of it. But all that to say, my team, I'm so proud of them because they innovated. We were doing all kinds of stuff on Facebook Live and on Instagram and connecting with new people. We did a beach baptism. Half the people we baptized had never even been to our building because our building was closed. We did that in the middle of the pandemic. Then we did a back to school drive-through. We had all these people that came and served. They'd never even come to a physical church service, but they joined our church while we were closed online and they went to the virtual membership class and everything. So we were growing while we were online. And when we reopened, of course, everybody didn't come back. And then there's been some ups and downs with peaks of cases. But now, we're at a point where we're almost back to the amount of people that we were pre-pandemic. This past weekend was the biggest weekend we've had as things are getting better and better, like every day. It's been great. We're like, keep going, right? But, the cool thing is about 60% of our church in person now is brand new people since we reopened in October of 2020. So we, in essence, have like a new church. And a lot of our other people are still watching online. And then the reality is some of them just disappeared. We don't know where they're at. We're praying for them. Maybe they're going to come back. Maybe they won't. But God has brought us this new group of people and there's momentum, there's excitement. And so, but at the same time, the challenge is we're trying to get those people onboarded and go to growth track and the membership and get plugged into community and serving. And, so I feel like we're church planting again, but we are in a really healthy place. Financially, it's been amazing, but that's because we've innovated in outreach, in discipleship systems, in follow-up systems, in giving systems. Like when we were closed, we had time to really brainstorm and make some things happen. And it's been some really amazing results that we've seen God doing. And people are hungry. And the other advantage I'll admit to everybody out there is that we have a little bit of advantage. We're in Tampa, Florida, which is like still named as the #1 real estate market. Yeah. And so we're averaging about 20 new families stepping through our doors every Sunday.
So Tommy,
just because like they're moving here, praise God.
I feel like in my vernacular, I would call you like a OG. Well, you probably I call you like a double OG.
Double? Oh man.
Yeah, you like double, man.
Myron, you got to explain to everybody what is an OG for all the people out there that might be new lingo for them.
OG means original gangster, but in our vernacular here, it means originally godly.
Yes,
and
it doesn't mean old guy. Okay.
No, it doesn't mean old guy. So like one of the things I think you're bringing up is you're telling a story, which I love, and you remind me of Ralph. You're telling a story, but in the story, you're dropping some gems on innovation. Because when you think about like reaching the next, reaching your community, reaching your neighborhood, the question you said, we started to ask ourselves some questions. And I think the mix up when it comes to being church leaders is we don't start with questions, we start with assumptions about the people that we're called to reach.
Yeah.
And so if we start with assumption, we end up leading to attrition. And so like can you, when you and your team in church, when you're thinking about some of the things that you've done over the last couple of years, I was at the drive back in the pandemic. I was there, I witnessed it with you. When you're thinking about these like missional ventures, talk to us a little bit about the thought process of moving towards any direction, and then the tension of having a 60% new church.
Yeah. One of the questions we always ask is anybody else meeting this need in the community? Because we don't want to duplicate what somebody else is doing well already. And so we do we're heavy on partnership and collaboration with a lot of organizations in our community. We're in the hood, but this neighborhood recently became a few years ago an innovation district. And so I actually sit on the advisory board of the innovation district. And I didn't get to tell you this, Myron, but recently I became the chairman of the board. So it's crazy. So I get to mix it up with all these community leaders and business CEOs and government leaders and political people and stuff. And so they highly respect what we do. And so we just have this great network where we can say, who can we partner with on this? How can we help solve this problem? How can we do this? And I mean, of course, the tension can be there sometimes of, we are a church. And so, yes, we want to do social work and social good in our community, but we always want to attach the gospel to it. If somebody says, okay, you guys can come, but you can't say anything about Jesus, we're like, well, because that's what our mission is to tell the world about Jesus and be the hands and feet of Jesus. And of course, we can do that without saying his name. But, obviously that's a big part of the why of what we do. And so, I mean, some of the tension with having a 60% new church now is for us to remind ourselves that everybody doesn't know our DNA. We assume sometimes, hey, we're getting ready to do Flavor Fest. We're getting ready to do Love Our City Week. Let's go. And you got, 60% of the crowd like, what is that? I've never done that before. What is that? And we're announcing it and assuming like everybody's ready to jump on board to be like, yeah, man, the last one was amazing. And, so we've had to be very intentional to tell stories, to talk about the why, to explain things, to take our time with things. And but people are excited when obviously you talk about it and promote it in the right way and explain it. And so that's been some of the tension we've had to remind ourselves is not everybody understands or knows our DNA. We have to talk a lot more about that than we did 2 years ago.
Love it. I know Jennifer got a question she want to ask you. And then we have a question from the audience. So after Jennifer asked this question from the audience, by the way, if you are in the audience, we kicking it in the room. We want y'all to engage us, grab a question, put it in the chat, and we want to make sure that we get it out there. So go ahead, Jen, and then we'll come back with this question.
Okay. So kind of going back to you doing youth ministry, my question centers around that. So how can we reach the youth effectively during these times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not the youth pastor anymore, but our teens I do have 2 teenagers in my house, and our teens have probably went through the hardest. They've been impacted the hardest, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen in my church, in my community, in my home. There's just a huge spike of depression amongst teenagers, isolation, anxiety. A lot of teens then they're feeling this pain and they've tried to cover it up with other things. And so, you know, if you don't know, like there's an epidemic right now of all those things, and an epidemic then of teens that are turning to substance abuse. They're vaping, not smoking cigarettes anymore like they did back maybe in the day. They're vaping, and they're vaping weed. And that is like so common. I mean, if you haven't noticed, like you smell weed everywhere now, at least you do here in my area. And it seems like so many people are turning to that, and just all over you see people that are just high. They're trying to escape reality. And so I think, you know, that might be new, but something that's not new is people just need community, and they need attention, and they need somebody to say, I see you. Because during this pandemic, a lot of teenagers were stuck in their room and stuck on their device. You know, I've read a lot of different statistics that, you know, said the amount of hours that teens, I mean, they were going to school online in front of a screen for 5 to 7 hours a day, but then their screen consumption with TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Netflix and YouTube and all the other stuff that they're watching, that went up dramatically by hours. So some of them were in front of a screen 10, 12, 14 hours a day. That begins to do something to you. You know, it rewires your brain in some ways. So then when everything reopened, and it's reopening still in some places, and teens are coming back out, now they just don't know how to react in person. They get anxious in a crowd. They have anxiety. They're freaking out. They feel socially awkward. I mean, they're great when they're on their screen, FaceTiming with somebody or playing a video game with 3 different people, you know, yelling at each other, having a great time. That's my kids in their bedrooms. But those can be some big challenges. And so, I mean, I think that community is big. I think that, you know, some of these teens, they're going to need Christian counseling and Christian therapy. You know, those are even some things that we've had my daughters in to try to help them navigate through these feelings and kind of get back in a rhythm. And one of the things that a therapist told us is a lot of these kids have lost their cues because they had a schedule before. You know, they got up at 8, they got up and then they did their school, they went to school, then they did this, then they ate, then they, you know, like there was like cues, and that's how their life was structured. The pandemic came and like all the structure went out the window. Right. In my house in Florida, it was for a shorter period of time, but it was still for like 6-7 months. And then school was different. Everyone's wearing masks and you can't really like talk to people as much. And, you know, my daughter went from junior high to high school. Everyone's wearing a mask. It's hard to make friends. It's just it's weird. It was really a tough time. And then in other places, some kids didn't go back to school for well over a year, and they lost all of their regular rhythms. And so to get them to think that they're just going to snap back into rhythm, even for a lot of adults, you know, that were working at home, and now the office is saying, you got to come back now. And everyone's like, oh, well, you know, I got to coordinate my life. And so we just have to, I think, realize and be honest that the post-pandemic world is much different, and the way we minister to teenagers, there's going to have to be some adjustments to youth ministry, and there's going to have to be a lot more personal touch.
Not to mention too, you know, some of our kids have lost their classmates to COVID. You know, my 2 girls have each lost a classmate, and to kind of guide them through that, plus some of the family deaths that we've experienced that talk about heaven and hell, and bringing those into, you know, our family conversation has been a very real thing. So definitely community is huge. To all of our church leaders that are watching, I just encourage you to hone in on your youth. Maybe have a youth day, bring in a youth pastor or somebody that can identify with them, and just give them that extra special love, especially this year, because everything's opening back up as we're seeing, and they got to get readjusted and know that it's safe, number 1, to go outside, and 2, that it's safe to be in the house of God.
Yeah, I think what's so cool is that the fact that we're talking about innovation and how technology has helped us continue church, but really at the core, we are still about connection. We are still about the heart to heart and the love of Christ being shown through us. So having said that, we do have a question from the audience, and we have an audience member that would love to hear more about your follow-up system. This member of the audience has a ministry for the homeless, but is finding it difficult to stay in contact with them and stay connected with them. So do you have any advice about that follow-up? Because they say that that's their bottleneck at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have one of these. This is mine, personal, and then this is my church one. It's charging right now. And so I probably sent out today, literally probably about 75 texts on here today that I personally was cutting and pasting. And then today I did 27 video texts. I think I did 25 because I did 2 yesterday. So every Sunday, well, here's a stack on my desk. This was the stack of first-time guests that came to church on Sunday. 27 new families that came. We have a guest table that, like I said, we've been averaging about 20. We had 27 on Sunday. We have a guest table. We hold up a gift bag, and we're like, hey, we got a gift bag for you. Just go to the table after service, and people want their gift bag. We got to fill one of these out. And so we were trying to do a QR code, but then they didn't fill out all the information. We weren't getting everything. So we went back to traditional. We got a whole bunch of clipboards and people get it. And we had people engaging and talking to them. And so I get these after they're entered into the church database. And then I do a custom selfie video text to them. Then I would just basically, say, hey, Jade, what's going on? It's Pastor Tommy from Crossover. Hey, it was so good to meet you Sunday after church. So grateful you came, that your friend John invited you to Crossover. So glad you moved here to Florida from England. Yeah, your accent was crazy, and then just invite them. I invite them back. I say, hey, I'm praying for you. I hope to see you. This is what's happening Sunday. I hope to see you. God bless. So 40-second, 50-second at the most. And I just go through, and it takes me a little bit of time, especially when there's 27 of them, right? But that's something that I don't need to delegate. I delegate a lot, but that's a personal touch right there that all those first-time people are like, oh my gosh, the pastor took out time to send me a video text. And most people have probably never even gotten a video text, but it's really cool. Yeah. And they'll open it. And about 70% of the people that I text, this thing has been ringing the whole time we're talking, because people are texting back like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you texted me. I'll be back Sunday. I loved your church. Great. No one's ever sent me a text. Some people have sent me a video text back. And so that's what we do for first-time visitors at the church. But for the question for the person in the audience on the chat, here's the reality. Most homeless people do have a cell phone. They do. We've done a lot of work with homeless in our community, and our community, even a few years ago, we had some tech people do an event at our church, and they created a special app for homeless people in our community to point them to resources. Because a lot of times everything is so scattered. It was like one app that they could go to that had all these different resources on it. And what they found was 90% of homeless people had a smartphone. And this was 3 years ago. And so I'm sure that even if they don't have Wi-Fi, if it's not connected, they can still, if their phone works, they can charge it. They can go to McDonald's and there's Wi-Fi there, and they can check their email, check different, there's free apps you can get on to get text messages. And so that could be a way, potentially. I don't know if you guys are doing anything with texting people. I mean, my assumption a few years ago was homeless people don't have phones. Oh, yes, they do. That's really one of the only things.
You know what, Tommy, what you're bringing up, and I want our audience to get, when we talk about outreach and reaching communities and neighborhoods, our assumptions can be working against us.
Yeah.
Our assumptions can be working against us, and our beliefs can be working against us. And so what we've heard you say over the last 30 minutes was, I never want to assume, I'm always curious. And you made a statement. You made a couple of statements, and I'm gonna figure out how I can rip you off on. But
go ahead.
You said we always want to be ahead of the curve. We always want to be ahead of the curve. And you, over the last few years, in your church, have been ahead of the curve on an initiative called Love Our City. And I don't want our time to get out, to talk about this, because it's an innovative way of reaching community that I think our audience needs to hear. So what is Love Our City? What is God doing with it? And why does our audience need to be involved with learning about it?
Definitely. So it's funny because actually I'm wearing the t-shirt today and a hat. I need a haircut. But we started doing this thing in 2017, and it is like a serve week on steroids. And so we basically put a pin drop of where our church is in the city and said, we want to go ahead and saturate the community around the church, not the whole city, but the Innovation District, which is about 3 to 5 miles that's around the church. And we want to just do all these community service projects for a week. And we want these people to just see that they're loved. We want them to see us. We want to touch them. We want to make their life better. We want to put a smile on their face. And so we do 3 kinds of projects. We do service projects, which could be like we're cutting people's grass, painting houses, cleaning schools, stuff like that, cleaning the parks, sweat equity. We do pay it forward projects. I love those. We'll show up at a couple thousand homes and just knock on the door, and we have a bag of groceries. We call it knock knock groceries. People are like, I didn't order groceries. We're like, we know. Well, these are free. It's Love Our City week. And they're like, oh, for real? Oh, thank you. You know, we show up at hundreds of homes with a hot pizza. And they're like, I didn't order pizza. Like, nah, it's free. It's Love Our City week. What are you doing this for? And everyone just wants to talk and have a conversation. It's amazing because like everyone's like, nobody does this. Why are you doing this? So we just want to make our city a better place. We want to let you know that you're loved. Want to bless you. You know, it's just amazing response. We show up the laundromat. That's one of my favorites, with $500 worth of quarters, and nobody knows we're coming. It's a surprise. And there's like 10 people in the laundromat. But within 30 minutes, the place is jam packed because everybody's calling their friends like, yo, you need to come down to the laundromat and bring everything, you know. And so and great ministry then happens as people are waiting for their laundry to be done. And then the third kind is we do appreciation lunches. So every teacher, every police officer, every firefighter, and some of the clinic workers in our community, we bring them catered lunch from one of our local restaurant partners that they either donate the food to us or we can get it for about $5 a lunch. And we have a gift bag with that. And we do almost 1,000 lunches that are, you know, right in our community that week. So we do pre-pandemic, we did 152 projects with over 1,500 people. And hundreds of those people were not even from our church. We got business sponsors like Humana, Florida Blue, air conditioning companies, like all kinds of business partners, because we started to gain a reputation. And listen, businesses are looking for team building opportunities. They're looking for philanthropy. They're looking for ways to give back. We have that funnel with Love Our City. You can come partner with us. And so their team comes, they all come to the church, they register online, they pick their event. So people love options. We set it up through Eventbrite, through our website, all the different projects. We have multiple projects every day at different times. Most of them are in the evening after work, and they can bring their kids. They're family friendly. They show up at the church, they check in, they get their free t-shirt. Everybody loves a free t-shirt. It has our sponsors on the back. So we print like over 1,000 t-shirts. Everybody is, you know, it's like a big billboard. Everybody loves a free t-shirt. And then they go out, we give them their supplies, they take pictures together, we pray for them really quick. And everybody is giving out a card, or there's a card that's in the gift bags or whatever, the grocery bags, that's inviting them to the Love Our City party. And the Love Our City party is that Sunday, which we usually do it the week leading up to Easter. But a lot of churches do it on a lot of different times. So it has been amazing. It brings in hundreds of first-time visitors. We see over 100 salvations every time that we do it on that Sunday. And then we do a big water baptism the following week, which is usually almost 100. So so we had so many churches asking us about it. Let me show you this real quick. I'm gonna step out the screen. I'm coming back. Got it right over here, actually. I just saw it on the shelf. So we created this this box kit for leaders, and we used to sell this for like $75. There's a lot of content in it. There's a thumb drive with the message series, small group videos. The small group videos are on Right Now Media as well. And there's a leader's guide in there that gives you the template. It's about 20 pages, how to set up all the details to make this into a full church campaign. So there's all the details are in here to help you do Love Our City. But during the pandemic, we were like, man, let's just give this away for free. And so we don't sell the kit itself. what we do now is, hey, if you buy 10 books, a minimum of 10 books, you get this free. And then some churches are buying hundreds because they want their whole church to go through it's a 30-day devotional book that we wrote. So every day it's not a one-hit wonder, but they're getting the theology of learning to love their neighbor as they love themselves. And why don't they normally do this? So they get saturated with that for 30 days. And the last week of that 30 days is when they do the serving week. And they just pick a project or two. And a lot of times small groups do the projects together. Families do the projects together. And it's just been an amazing response every time we've done it. And there's been about 300 churches that have gone through it. So loveourcitybook.com is where you can get one of these and see the information on it.
Yeah, make sure you go and check that out. And I think we owe you another thank you, because I believe we were inspired at the Edge and by Love Our City, and we have Love GR. So we did the same things essentially. And I remember through COVID we was doing it, and we was giving out gifts to like kids and stuff like that. We was knocking on every door, inviting them out. And one thing that a few people just wanted is a hug. And it was amazing because it was through the pandemic, and there's no touching and stuff like that, but people were just desperate for a hug. And that just shows you how much love goes a long way. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for that resource. It's really blessing the kingdom of God. And not only have you stopped there, but you're also leading an innovative pastors network as well. Why was that important for you to start, and what have you learned by doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done coaching for pastors and church planners now for over 10 years. And generally what I would do is like a 6-month cohort, and we would walk through some different systems of how you can, innovate in these different systems in an unchurched, dechurched, multi-ethnic urban context. And so, I had over 100 guys go through that. And every time I did it, I would tweak it, for what we were currently doing. But honestly, after you do Myron, I did it like about 11 times. I was tired of doing it a little bit. I loved helping the guys, but it just, it wasn't as fresh anymore to me because I did it so many times. And so anyways, but during the pandemic, we were doing all these innovative things, and a lot of my friends were calling me, what are you guys doing? Like, what's working? Like, we're struggling. Oh man, you need to try this. Oh man, you got to keep giving us more information. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to start a new coaching network that is just ongoing. It's not 6 months. It's just an ongoing. You can jump in whenever you want, jump out whenever you want. And that was the problem with my other one. It was structured to be 6 months. And if you didn't sign up and get in it, well, I'm not doing another one till next year or for another 6 months or so. But this is something that people can jump in at any time and jump out at any time. It's just like a monthly subscription thing. And it's talking about innovation that we're doing right now that's working during the pandemic or post-pandemic in real time. And so, we've talked about how to be creative with finances. We talked about outreach. I had Myron on there talking about like how you can personally learn to get some more income, like a side hustle as a pastor, and just so many different things that we've done on there that has really helped guys. And there's a couple dozen people that are a part of it. Translationleadership.com is where you can find out more information about that, or my Instagram is UrbanD813. It's in the links in there. Translation is with a Z though. And here's another cool thing. I'm gonna step out for a second real quick. We created this innovation box too. Yeah, we got into this box thing, but it's huge. People love boxes. So when you join that, you get an innovation box. And there's a bunch of books that I've written that we use at our church, and some other resources and samples of things like our magazine and brochures and flyers, and lots of samples that you can see that can help give you ideas and stuff you can use as well. And so when you join the network, you get one of these mailed to you, and you also get a free registration to Flavor Fest too. Yeah. Wow. So we kind of pack a lot of value in it.
That's so cool. So obviously you're showing people how to be innovative, and you're giving a lot of material away, a lot of gems, a lot of free game. So just one of our last questions is, what are some pointers that you would give leaders on what it takes to lead through change?
Yeah. So it takes innovation, obviously. That's what we're talking about. You can't stay the same. Like Myron said a few minutes ago, if you don't innovate, you'll die. And we've seen that happen during this pandemic. We all know some churches that have permanently closed their doors, or we know some churches right now that they are on life support and they might not make it if they don't like turn things around quickly. And I have some friends of mine that have gone through that, and it's heartbreaking to hear that. So you got to innovate, not just adapt, but you got to innovate. You got to do some things that are totally different than the way that you did them before. I think the other part too is you got to have grit. I mean, yeah, honestly, it's not, leading ministry is never for the weak of heart, right? It's challenging, it's hard, but then to lead and pastor through a pandemic, man, that's a whole nother breed right there. And maybe many of you thought, like myself included, I had my moments where I'm like, man, do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to keep preaching to a camera? I didn't sign up for this. Like, I want to be with the people. I like doing this, that, and, we were so desperate to get it back to the way it was before. But God, God called you to this. God called you to the ministry that you're leading. And so he can build that grit in you. He can build that endurance in you. He can build that muscle, and you're stronger than you think you are many times. But you still have to be healthy during this time and find ways to manage the stress and get the stress out, whether that's a hobby you have or working out. I like to go to the gym and get some stress out. Got to have some accountability partners, just some people to pour into you and encourage you. We need to be encouraged during this time because there's been so much division and a lot of decisions we've made as pastors. There's always going to be somebody that's going to come against some of those decisions. We can't keep everybody happy with some of the things that we've had to decide in the past 2 years. And so your skin has to be a little bit thicker as well. But God can help you with all those things and build it. But the good news is it looks like the post-pandemic is on the horizon. It looks like the light is at the end of the tunnel. And I'm hoping, I'm praying there's no more big variants and that things are going to get better and better. But it's going to be a new normal.
Well, Tommy, I know our time is fastly approaching. Those who are watching, you need to get to know this guy because he's going to be at Exponential next week. I'm going to be there. A few of us are going to be there. And he and I are actually doing a workshop on this.
Yeah.
We're actually
together hanging out. You want to come?
Forgot about that. I forgot.
Got a seat for you.
You got what for me?
You got a seat for you. I'm telling people. You don't want to be.
We got a seat for you.
We're gonna be bringing it.
But we don't have too many seats. So listen, make sure y'all
better hurry. It's gonna be standing room only. Everyone's coming to see Myron Pierce.
Well, Tommy, with 8 minutes left, bro, we have a lightning round. And in that lightning round, Jennifer's going to ask you a couple questions, and you have to be completely honest.
Okay.
Or we'll write a blog on you.
Uh-oh.
All right. So question number one. So being that you started out with hip hop, who was your biggest hip hop influence?
So back in the day, I was listening to Public Enemy, Big Daddy Kane, Eric B. and Rakim, KRS-One. Those were some of the 90s golden era. But then, as I got into Christian hip hop, the Cross movement was definitely, they were friends of mine as well, a little bit older than me. Soup the Chemist from SFC. We ended up getting ready. We did some music together as well. So those are some of my heroes from back in the day.
Who are you listening to right now in terms of Christian hip hop?
Yeah, man, I love what KB is doing. He's right here in our city. I'm super proud of him. And we have a great relationship. And he's actually we're doing an event together coming up April 8th here at Crossover. I have a new book coming out called Frames. It's about perspective. And he has a podcast called Southside Rabbi. And him and Amin, his partner, it's incredible. They have about 40,000 listeners now. So we're going to do a live recording of the podcast with the audience, and they're going to be asking me questions about the book. And then we're going to also tie in a concert. We're going to have Dayton and Monster Tarver and some local artists here from my church. So yeah, I love what KB's doing. I love Stephen Malcolm from The Edge. Love that guy.
Yeah, that's my brother.
I was at the gym the other day at Planet Fitness, and he popped up on the screen, one of his songs, and I took a picture and sent it to him. Like, bro, you made it. You're at the gym. Shortly after him, Shepherd came on. One of his songs was on there as well. Oh, yeah. And then NF was on there. I'm like, look at all this, it was cool. So yeah,
Amazing.
Awesome. So your stage name is Urban D. How did you get that? And what does the D stand for?
I'm
All
guessing disciple, is it?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. I'm like, what does, oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Urban disciple. Love it.
Hey.
My first couple albums back here, that one and that one, and actually my first national. So my first 3 albums, it was Urban Disciple. But everybody started calling, a lot of people call me Urban D. And some people would mess it up, man. Like you wouldn't believe it. They would be like Urban, or they would announce me like Urban Discipline, Urban, Urban the Urban League, you know, and I'm like, Urban D. It's just a lot easier. So in 2001, I changed it to Urban D, and the D is for disciple of Christ in the urban context.
Amen.
That's so fun. So here's the question. Here's the final question. And can we get like 16 bars for the audience real quick?
Oh man. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. I'll do something from Love Our City, and then maybe I'll just freestyle a little bit at the end.
Oh, he said he gonna freestyle at the end.
Right. Come on, man. Can we edit this out if I mess up?
No, it's live.
Yo, we should have had a beat ready for him.
All right, it goes like this. We live in a world full of disrespect. Everywhere we look, there's negative rhetoric. Twitter, Facebook, IG, Snap. It seems that our culture got stuck in the trap. Me versus you, my people versus yours. Division, divorce. It's tearing our cities apart at the core. You have to know we're created for more. We're put on this planet for purpose. But bullies make people feel worthless. The stuff that we post is so worthless. See, I messed up. So I'm a freestyle now. So pick some freestyle here on Next. And with Jade and Jennifer, they're about to flex. And with my guy, Myron Pierce, he's going to hit you. As an entrepreneur, my man is so fierce. So we'll see y'all next week at Exponential in Orlando. But we always representing Jesus Christ because he's the man, though.
Hey.
Yeah.
I gotta ask somebody about Urban D, man. It's been a pleasure, bro.
Absolutely.
Man, you've been a legend, a hero in my mind. More than that, a brother. You've blessed us, and our hope together is that the audience, whether you're catching it live on the replay, that what you heard at the heart of Tommy's story, at the heart of Crossover, is a church that's willing to ask the right questions and to refrain from assuming assumption, to never stop innovating, because innovation is going to drive us forward into the future. And like I said, if you don't innovate, you'll die. And so me and my crew, Jade, Jennifer, we're so thankful for y'all as we get this going. We will not be here next week. We're off, but you don't want to miss our next episode with Josh Stotzler from Abide Network. So again, thank you guys so much. We appreciate y'all. Go find Urban D on IG. Jade
Urban D 813.
Come on, give me your IG handle. Shout them out, Jade and Jennifer.
Jade Rich 18.
And Jen Janelle.
And don't forget to follow LeadNet at Leadership Network, and we'll see you next time.